Today we're going to talk about planting hops inside containers. So my new hop variety came in today and I wanted to put it inside the container. Now I'm going to take this container and actually bury it into the ground, leaving the lip exposed above ground. Now you might be thinking, why go through the trouble of putting it into the container if you're just going to plant it into the ground? Well, there's several reasons and we're going to talk about that. Planting hops inside of containers is a really good idea. These three varieties I had put in containers. I actually put these in containers a long time ago because I was moving and I wanted to be able to transplant them. So when I transplant them here, I put the whole container in the ground, but it made me discover this. Now, if we go beyond this, this is what it looks like in the hop yard where I don't have containers. And you can see the weeds come in, they infiltrate, and they just take over. This is a prime example here of this plant. The shoots actually are coming out way away from the crown where I actually planted it. Where I planted it, there's this big giant clump of grass. It's very hard to maintain the hops this way. So I realized, kind of like a little secret I think, is by putting these into the containers, it stops the spread of the grass into the containers, and it also stops the rhizomes from spreading outward and getting tangled up and getting confused with the other hop varieties. What they'll do is actually hit the sidewall, climb up the sides, and you can trim them back. It's a very easy way to maintain these hop varieties. Now, before we can add these plants into the pots, we have to drill our holes in the bottom. We're going to do that for two reasons. When you buy this, it comes with a solid bottom. But what we want to do is drain plenty of holes in the bottom. This is for drainage, so when the water builds up in here, if you get a heavy rain, you don't want it sitting out here flooding out your root system, so this will allow it to drain. That's the number one reason. The second reason, I actually found out by accident when I transplanted my hops. I thought that they would be contained in the container. I actually had to take a spud bar and pry these out of the ground, and the roots were dangling huge. I had to take some burlap and wrap around them and water them down to bring them over and transplant them into their new location. So that triggered something that I need to drill bigger holes to allow those roots to come through and not get strangled. The other thing that I'm going to do, now that I know that, is take my razor blade and cut a little tiny slit in each holes. So if the root does go through and tries to expand, it'll actually kind of press against that and break through without being strangled and actually cut into the root system. That's my theory anyway. So we're going to do that. We're going to drill all these holes, and then we're going to go ahead and put these in the ground. I'm going to take my knife, make a few small incisions on each hole. I don't think it's going to take much, just enough to make a little weak around there. We're going to do 4 per hole, so if it has to, it can spread that apart. Technically, we wouldn't really even need the bottom. You could cut the whole bottom out, but I like keeping it intact because it actually offers support for the rest of the container. Okay, now we're ready to put these in the ground. I got 2 of these in the ground. This is my last one tonight. I'm just going to sit this on the ground here as an idea where I want it. Take my shovel and make my first plunge. And that just lets me know a marker where I'm going to be. I just kind of eyeball this. You could go around and chisel your way around to make a template, but I just kind of follow the curve of the shovel. Just keep digging in and just trying to remove that top piece of sod. It's a pretty big hole. It seems intimidating at first, but it's really not that bad. Once you get this top layer of sod broke up and out of here, it actually goes pretty quick. And if you mess up and dig a little wider, it's not really a big deal. You can have plenty of dirt to fill in around the edges. And if you make it too small, you can always dig it out a little bit bigger. So that's it. Now we got a giant plug. So I'm just going to take my shovel and chop it in half just so it's more manageable for me to lift it, move it around. And there we go. That's the first half of the plug. This actually reminds me of something. I put down this landscape fabric a long time ago. I thought it'd be a good idea keeping the weeds out of my hops, but what I found was it was actually a bad idea. I put this down, I mulched on top of it, but the mulch just turns to compost and dirt, really. So as the grass infiltrated it, it just pretty much grew right on top of the mulch and right through this anyway. So this was a waste of time. I'm gonna start parking all the soil in here, and actually the deeper I go, I feel like the better the soil gets. It's nicer. This is really good soil out here too. It's very sandy and it drains well. So I'm actually going to use a portion of this back into the pot, at least in the lower layer, and I'm going to slowly mix in my potting soil that I got. That way it slowly gets acclimated to the actual soil that's going to be here, and it's going to be here forever. And the top part will be the nice potting soil that most likely those starter plants are used to right now. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to start filling my pot up. I'm going to start utilizing some of this natural soil that I pulled out of here in the bottom layer. Then I'm going to mix it in with this good potting mix. This stuff does have some fertilizer in it, so that'll kind of help as the roots grow. They'll find this fertilizer. I'm actually surprised how far one bag went. I wasn't sure. I actually bought 3 bags per pot, but the fact that I did use some of this natural soil definitely helped. But I might only need 2 of these bags. Whew. Look at that. 2 is plenty. Actually might be too much. I might have to take some of this and drop it into the other one. Okay, this is what it looks like with all of them in the ground. There's the 3 we're putting in today. We'll come up here, we'll take a look. These are the older ones. Notice how the soil is sunk down in. I'm going to use some of this extra soil to go ahead and top these off and bring them up to level. But that's why I wanted to pack those in a little bit higher and let it settle down in so we didn't have this giant void like this guy. But every year I usually kind of mulch these at the end of the year anyway to help for the winter. So when you mulch them every year, it kind of helps build that up also. We are all finished today. All 3 new hop plants are in the ground, planted in containers successfully. So if you want to see how these guys continue to grow this year, subscribe to our channel and keep an eye on our upcoming videos. I'm going to do little small videos throughout the year showing you how these guys are doing, how the whole hop yard's doing, other tips. We're going to do a video on irrigation.